Yakuza Dead Souls, or Ryuga Gotoku of the End, is certainly a very interesting game when it comes to the RGG series as a whole. It was released in Japan on June 9, 2011, and in the West early 2012. At the time, The Walking Dead was one of the most popular television shows out there, and games such as Red Dead Redemption and Call of Duty were getting their own zombie modes. Naturally, RGG Studios thought it was a good idea to take the Yakuza series and turn it into a third-person zombie shooter to capitalize off of the zombie craze. What we got was a game that has been widely discussed over time. With lukewarm reviews, Yakuza Dead Souls isn't exactly held up to the high standards in the Yakuza community. Well, with it being the Halloween season, being in the spirit, we at kamurochobros thought it was a good idea to answer the question, is Yakuza Dead Souls really that bad? So thank you all for joining the video, I hope you enjoy it, let's get on with it. So today we're talking about Yakuza Dead Souls, and who better to talk about Yakuza Dead Souls with Mr. Devil Leon 7 himself. How you doing today, Devil?
Doing great. Thank you for having me over. It's a pleasure to be here.
I appreciate you being such a friend of the channel, and today we have a very interesting topic. I know it's a topic that gets brought up in a lot of your streams, people memeing it and everything. But today, we're finally going to settle the question, is Yakuza Dead Souls really that bad? And before we ever answer that, I think there's a bunch of things that we need to go over first, such as the game itself, the gameplay, the story, wrap that all into one, and that way we can give a definitive answer from both of us at the end. So when you're talking about Yakuza Dead Souls, obviously you're talking about a way different kind of gameplay than what we're used to in the mainline Yakuza series. I mean, it's it's basically they're taking that they're taking the engine from these, Yakuza 3 and 4 and making it a third-person shooter against zombies. Now, I played a lot of third-person shooters during my life, Devil. To me, the gameplay is kind of just... I kind of had problems shooting the zombies and getting control of everything. What do you think about the overall shift of the gameplay for Yakuza Dead Souls?
I think the initial reception anyone would have to that game is the same as Yakuza Like a Dragon or Yakuza 7, where it's a very drastic change, a complete shift in the genre of the game itself, where, usually you would have a brawler kind of game where you're just beating everyone up with your fists mainly, and I know you can use weapons, but that's not really the focus. The game is designed to have like all of these flashy moves, counters, just finishers, a lot of different stuff. But now with Yakuza Dead Souls, you just have guns. That's the main way to deal damage in this game. Because you do have one segment as Kiryu where he refuses to use weapons or guns, and he realizes it's futile, like he has to actually use guns. So yeah, gunplay has a big role in this game, and it took a lot of people by surprise back in the day. But it does help that it's a very separate thing, a whole spin-off, so people didn't have to worry about this taking over like the main Yakuza combat. So there's that. But I kind of appreciate and respect the all of the different things they try to do with this game.
Oh yeah, I think you could draw similarities to like House of the Dead and everything when it comes to Dead Souls and the shooting mechanics and everything. The shooting felt really clunky to me. I don't know how it felt to you, but I just remember just having so many problems just like strafing and everything and trying to get like a lock on enemies the first few hours that I played. Did you have any problems with that at all when it came to the gameplay side of things?
Okay, let me say one thing very clearly. I might be biased for this game, but I will do my best to try to speak objectively, because
hell no, this is an opinion piece, sir. Air out your opinion.
I'd like to think that I do know like the objective issues people have with this game, and the controls are definitely one issue people did have with this game, even back in the day. Well, you have a lot of zombie shooter kind of games like Call of Duty Zombies or Left 4 Dead or Resident Evil. All of these games are kind of renowned for a lot of reasons, and the controls like play out very well in those games. They excuse me, they studied the controls, or well, maybe not studied. That's a pretentious word, but they just play out very well. You feel good while you play them. Left 4 Dead especially is a very simple game. You just go in, team up with one of your friends, and just shoot up some zombies. It's really not that deep. Dead Souls is in a very unique position where they primarily made brawler games using very specific like a control scheme, and now with Dead Souls they tried to kind of do a weird hybrid, if that makes sense. Like it's their first venture into a shooter game, and they tried to make it work, but I think it translated very awkwardly, and people had problems adapting to that. Now, speaking personally, it did take me quite a bit to get used to it, but once I got used to it, it wasn't really too much of an issue, per se.
Right. And I think it goes back to they were trying to incorporate many things from the series, because even heat actions were in the game, where you just shoot like a valve or something, and water comes spewing out and gets rid of all the zombies that are in front of you. Which, by the way, those heat actions could very much tank the frame rate of the game, but we'll get into frame rate and stuff later.
Oh, God.
Oh, God. Yeah, it's pretty bad. But I think they tried to make it, if this sounds bad, just let me know. They tried to make it too much Yakuza than just a really fun zombie shooter that you can just pick up with your friends. Because obviously you can't, because it's just does the game have multiplayer? I can't remember if it... I know some of the games do.
No. It might have multiplayer, but probably for some of the mini games in the main menu, which is a very niche selection.
Right. I've never used it. I've never used the
neither.
multiplayers. To me, it's just a very drastic change from what we had for the zombie formula at the time. And the controls were kind of But let's talk about some more positive things for a second about the Dead Souls gameplay experience. Because let's not forget, Dead Souls is also the first time that you could play as Goro Majima, which I thought...
Ryuji as well.
Yes, and Ryuji. We'll talk about Ryuji here in a little bit, and what we think about him, being involved in the story and everything, but I gotta say, Majima and Ryuji, Ryuji had his gun arm like Barret from Final Fantasy VII, and Majima just goes around crazy with shotguns. And I had a hell of my favorite moments were playing as them. Who was your favorite character to play as in Dead Souls?
Well, I think if you were to ask me this way back, I would say Majima, just because, well, I think even at the time, a lot of people would have loved to see him playable. And the fact that this was a unique game in the sense that you're playing as him for the first time, and also Ryuji. Like, Ryuji's very, very cool in this game. I still think, in my very own humble opinion, that Dead Souls Ryuji is the best Ryuji of all Ryujis.
Yes.
I'll die on that hill. How do I put this? I guess if you were to ask me, I would agree with you. The Majima and Ryuji segments are probably my favorite, mainly because, it's kind of a new territory for Yakuza fans to delve into, as far as what to kind of get out of the game. Maybe Majima at this point of time isn't a very, say for example you played Yakuza 0, maybe Kiwami 2 where he's also kind of playable, and then you go back to Dead Souls, it's not going to feel as special, but for us back in the day, it was literally the first instance of a playable Majima, so it was very much of a big deal. If I had to pick now, I might go with Ryuji as top favorite part. Yeah,
man, that gun that he has for an arm is fucking awesome. It was just so much fun, just totally just keep on pressing the fire button and see just everybody just get destroyed. Right now, the thing about that arm was that I could tell that it was taking the frame rate a lot. But what didn't tank the frame rate in that damn game?
I was thinking the same thing. Everything in this game, just absolutely has the frame rate crapping on its own.
But let's stick to something more positive about Yakuza Dead Souls right now. We'll talk about frame rate in a second. There's a lot of side content in the game as well. A lot of different mini games and everything. Karaoke makes a return, and apocalyptic Kamurocho, because after you kill a few zombies, you can just go sing Bakamitai, or if I don't even think that was in the game at the time, but
it's a staple. A zombie apocalypse is not going to change that.
They gotta have karaoke, man.
They need their fix.
There was just so much to do and so many side activities that you could do with this zombie apocalypse and everything. I think that's a good thing about. That's one of the things that makes Yakuza with the mini games and everything, and I'm glad it's there, because sometimes I feel like the levels could like drag on a little bit, so it was nice to like get all those mini games. I gotta say, get to the top, Majima's version on Dead Souls, it's like one of the most iconic karaoke songs in my opinion.
That song was a shocker for everybody when we first saw it, because I mean, he took something, I think, like in Yakuza 3 and 4, this is a song Haruka would sing. And seeing Majima take that song and just he has his own spin on the song, and like a very bizarre one, I think everybody was sold.
I see a lot of people saying, "Where's the song from?" I'm like, bro, you haven't played Dead Souls yet. It's in Dead Souls.
You haven't played the best game yet. Go play it. What's stopping you?
Hey, we already have our answer, guys. But Dead Souls is the best game in the Yakuza series. Video over.
No cap. No cap.
No cap. No cap at all.
I want to also say, the sub-stories in this game, like being a zombie, being a game in a zombie apocalypse, a lot of the sub-stories are very, very unique in this game. Like, it's not, your typical, I don't know, like the millionth scam to Kamurocho, even though you do have scams, I think, in this game. But they're kind of themed around the, apocalyptic setting of the game. One of my favorite sub-stories, actually, well, I don't know if I should say favorite, but one sub-story that stood out to me is one where Kiryu kind of meets these group of people who advocate for zombie rights, until that actually bites them back in the ass. So things go very wrong. And I don't know, like, it's just a very amusing sub-story. Like, it goes to show, like, don't mess with something that's, like, kind of unknown to you, you know what I mean? I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, that's a cool sub-story.
I think you put it beautifully right there, Devil. I mean, there's so much wackiness going. The game doesn't take itself too seriously. I mean, there's karaoke during the damn zombie apocalypse, and the sub-stories are just side effect of that. The sub-stories are still goofy. Do you remember the the sub-story with when you're playing as Majima, and you get Daigo, you convince Daigo to like become like your girlfriend or something, and like pretend to like make out with you, because that's like how you lure in zombies and stuff, and like the movies and everything.
That's a fan favorite.
Oh, Daigo dresses up as this very beautiful woman. And, and Majima's like, "Come and put your tits on my body and everything, baby." That's got to be one of my favorite sub-stories of all time. I was dying laughing with that.
Oh yeah, no, like the whole Daigo and drag thing is pretty. It's let's say a unique experience, first of all. But then the fact that this sub-story, like, makes fun of the movie cliches, like, B-tier movies, it's just very, like, very fitting with this game, and I love it.
One other thing fitting about the game to me is that the boss battles for the actual gameplay are very epic in scale as well. Like some of the boss battles, like not to get too spoiler heavy, but I believe you fight Ryuji's dad as like this like octopus kind of kraken kind of boss enemy at one point, and the scale of that fight was awesome. I loved a bunch of the fights, including like the Akiyama boss fight against a prototype. Just those are so really good, memorable to me. But
pretty much all of the major boss fights in this game also have a proper like what we call a dynamic intro, which is pretty cool. I appreciate that about the game.
But I think you have one thing to say about one boss. I wouldn't call it a boss fight, but there is a tank minigame that I want to mention for a second.
Oh god, well, where do I start with that?
Go ahead.
So Yakuza Dead Souls, this definitely goes to the cons, but I mean, might as well talk about it now. The tank, there's a tank segment in the game where you have to like, wait, sorry, not a tank. I think it's like a, I don't even know what it is. It's like a car with a turret or something like that. And you have to like control the turret or the rocket or whatever. And it's basically like a chasing segment where you are driving, but you're also getting chased by this boss monster. And that boss, maybe on normal, isn't too big of a deal, or hard even. But when you play on X Hard or the exclusive Dead Souls difficulty, I think you're gonna start hating your day a lot, because it's just very, very brutal. Some of the segments in this game were not really designed the best, especially on the higher difficulties. You have that, and then you have the amazing forklift segment where the forklift you control has health, so you have to be careful about that. And driving into zombies drains the health of that forklift as well.
But it was fun as hell doing it, though.
I mean, on lower difficulties, yeah, sure, but you don't want to play that on higher difficulties. No, I'll say this. I went back to play Dead Souls, I think, on the highest difficulty, not too long. I think it was earlier this year. It wasn't that bad, so maybe it's something that I struggled with like years ago, but not so much now.
I know that the game has a lot of technical issues. We're going ahead and get into that as well. I know that the game is very unstable at times, and it makes it for a very hard time when it comes to like speedrunning the game, and the game is prone to crashes, frame rate issues. Man, I'm telling you, almost every boss fight I had, I could be like being hit by one attack, and I swear the frame rate was going at single digits. It was, everything in this game just tanked the frame rate. It was, I maybe had one or two crashes, but I just remember just the game was like holding on by a thread. I know my PS3 was hot as shit.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But the entire game is just like not running at a stable frame rate at all. And it's,
yeah, see that thing where, you know, you can obviously tell or see all of these frame rate drops. They were definitely going into new territory with this game, but they were not completely ready for it. But I can respect them for trying, I guess.
Right. It was ambitious. I'm telling you that a lot of the fights, especially like the bigger boss fights, were very ambitious, but because it was very ambitious and you're fighting this huge monster, it obviously tanked the frame rate and everything, and it's just caused so many technical issues. But
yeah, absolutely.
If you do pick up the game for PS3, because it is still available digitally right now, the physical price is astronomical right now, but if you do pick up the game digitally, just remember, it's not going to run the best on PS3.
The emulation for Dead Souls has one major weakness, and that's crashes. Otherwise, it's surprisingly pretty good. Like, PS3 emulation in general has gotten amazingly efficient.
Right.
With a game like Dead Souls, again, the only problem is just crashes. I personally deal with crashes, like whenever I play it, it's like every hour or every other hour, so that's kind of frequent. You don't want to deal with crashes that often, but it is what it is. If you don't have a PS3, this is another way to play it.
Now, before we wrap up our discussion about Dead Souls, we have to talk about the story. I know it's not the best story in the world and everything, but it does get these four protagonists together, includes the return of Ryuji, Overall story is Haruka is kidnapped again, and Kiryu has
surprise.
to save, surprise, and Kiryu has to save her, but there's this apocalypse that happens, and basically Akiyama, Kiryu, Majima, and Ryuji are out to find what happened and cure everything. What are your overall thoughts on the story? Because obviously it's not canon. Ryuji definitely did not survive Yakuza 2. If canonically he survived Yakuza 2, I mean,
in my humble opinion, again, the fact that this game is non-canon is one of its strongest points. They can do whatever the hell they want.
Yes.
And bringing back Ryuji is one of those things, and people loved it. I loved it. Ryuji is actually, generally speaking, not one of my favorite characters, not even close. But this game, I think he's really, really awesome. I love him in this game. And in terms of the story character order, this game goes Akiyama, Majima, Ryuji, and Kiryu. And the fact that they saved Kiryu for last in this game works really, really, really well, especially considering what happens. Not gonna spoil that too much, but think of Yakuza 4 perhaps, where you get introduced to all of these characters, and then finally, at last, you play as, the legend himself. And it just feels very good.
It's awesome, yeah. Playing as Kiryu at the end and seeing his struggle at first. Also, you mentioned this earlier, but his struggle with, dealing with the zombies and having to shoot them and everything. His own morality about that was also a great point during his part as well. Otherwise, the story of Dead Souls isn't that deep. It
really isn't that deep. It's simple, and I think it's self-aware about that. It knows what it wants to do, and I like that.
Yes, and it's not canon, so anything can happen, even Ryuji Goda showing up. So,
yes,
this all begs the question, Devil. Do you think Yakuza Dead Souls is really that bad a game? Do you think the hate is it misplaced?
Warranted?
Yes.
Well, yeah. Questions like this are kind of tricky to approach, because if you don't like shooters, then you just don't like shooters. It's going to be a bad game to you. But if you're open to the idea, then some discussion can be had. I think this game does have flaws, very obvious ones. We talked about frame rate dips. We talked about the controls being kind of wonky. We talked about... what else did we talk about? I guess the story, that's a very subjective thing. But the story of Dead Souls is pretty crappy to some people, and I guess decent to others. Again, in my opinion, the fact that this game is not canon and just, anything goes is one of its strongest points. Pretty much anything they do, eventually, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
And I think they should do that more often, honestly. This is the only game where they do that. You have the Judgment games where they are canon, they happen in a universe and everything. You have the Black Panther games, or the Kiryu games, where that's also in universe, very much canon. But then you have Yakuza Dead Souls, where that's the only game of its kind where it's its own separate thing, and it's very different in that it kind of brings this supernatural element, I guess, of zombies. And I really like that about it. I wouldn't mind if they do more stuff like this. I don't know, like an alien game next to something.
Yes!
I have no idea. But it could work.
Hey, I'd be down for a Yakuza Alien game, dude. I mean,
me too.
As a shooter, I think you can make an argument for maybe this game is a lower tier kind of thing. But in terms of overall fun, I had a lot of fun playing the game, even with the struggles with it.
I know people that started with this game, okay, and they loved it and they wanted more.
Yeah, this game was basically made because of the zombie craze and everything that was happening when the game released at the time. And it was very unique in that fact that they're trying to appeal to a certain audience. Obviously, they wanted this game to do well, especially over here in the U.S. and the West, where the zombie craze was even more. Did it succeed in that? No, but...
No, not at all.
I think it's a good game if you go in and expect, not perfect controls, obviously. You know that you're going to have a bad frame rate and everything, but if you go in with an open mind and realize that you will get the controls down pat, realize there is fun to be had, and realize there's a lot of wackiness, I think it could be a very good and fun game.
This game, you know, thinking about it, it kind of has that charm of, you know, sometimes you find these older, janky, but charming games. It has the same kind of vibe, where it's not perfect, but you can tell there's a lot of heart put into it.
It's like a guilty pleasure.
It's like a guilty pleasure, yeah. Something you kind of look back on and you're like, oh, wow, can't believe they made this silly little game, but I love it.
Will we get Yakuza Dead Souls remastered?
I wish, I hope, I fucking hope. I mean, this is a game that's always been kind of close to my heart. And I meme on it, people meme on it, but I do genuinely like this game. It just tried to do something very different, and it wasn't really shy about that, and I love it.
Yes.
I wouldn't mind, again, a Dead Souls 2 where they bring back, I don't know, Mine, maybe?
Yes, Mine! Yes, I needed a Dead Souls 2 with Mine in it.
I just realized I spoiled Yakuza 3, but I mean...
who cares?
You can cut that out. You can cut that out if you want, but
Nah.
I mean, you know, people get the point. They can resurrect any dead character, and you can play as them in this game, in the sequel.
Just like in Dragon Ball, no one ever truly dies in the Yakuza universe. I think we all know that.
That's actually creeping into the mainland games now, sadly, but yeah.
No one ever truly dies. Devil, thank you so much for joining me for this video. I really appreciate it. I think this was a great topic for, you know, it's close to Halloween and everything. This is the perfect October game, in my opinion. And I had a good time talking with you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course, thank you for having me. This has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween, guys. We'll see you on the next Kamurochobros video.
See ya. Bye-bye.